Marketing is about your customer. And you have to wake up every morning and say that to yourself. My marketing is about my customer. And if you really believe that, you will be brilliant.
Yeah, so true. Beautiful advice. And I think that's so true more and more even to this day, because we're all using all these different tools and we can get carried away. But we have to just think, what's in it for them, not what's in it for us. Welcome to Playing with Perspective, the suspended animation podcast, where we hear real stories from real people and we tackle all sorts of fun topics in the areas of business, marketing, entrepreneurship, mindset, the arts, and, well, life itself. It's amazing what you will pick up. Thanks for joining us. Welcome back, everyone. It's Darren Saul here, your host of Playing with Perspective, the suspended animation podcast. Hope everybody's doing really well. I have a great show today. It's episode 236 with the fantastic Lorraine Ball. How are you, Lorraine?
I'm fabulous. How about you? How are you tonight, Darren? Or morning?
Well, yes, it's morning here in Sydney. You're in the US and you've just come back from holiday. So lucky you.
Yes, but I'm ready to get back. I'm ready to get back to work. So it's all good.
I love it. And funny you should say that, because Lorraine does lots of different things, including she's been running her own podcast. So the topic for today is 15 years of podcasts and still talking, which I love. So after spending too many years in corporate America, Lorraine said goodbye to the bureaucracy, glass ceilings, and bad coffee to follow her passion to help small business owners succeed. Today, this successful entrepreneur, author, and professional speaker enjoys sharing what she knows about marketing in presentations to groups around the country, in college classrooms, and in her weekly podcast, More Than a Few Words. She brings creative ideas, practical tips, and decades of real-world experience to every conversation. In her spare time, she loves to travel and take photos. Sounds like me. And we were talking about her photography antics just before we started the show. But Lorraine, welcome to the show. Really lovely to have you.
Thank you. It is so nice to be here. I'm excited about the conversation.
I'm excited about this. We could take it in any direction. But why don't we start with, tell us a bit more about you, your background, and all these fun things that you do.
So I would love to say that my career was this straight line, this grand plan, and I went from here to here, and everything fell in line just the way it was supposed to. Everything fell into place. I don't know if it was the way it was supposed to, but I started as a teacher, and then I got into business. I did corporate for a while, and then I ran my own agency and sold that about 3 years ago, and I'm freelancing. And the funny thing is, I'm also back teaching. I'm in college classrooms now.
Cool.
So I've kind of come full circle.
That's interesting.
And along the way, one of the things that I discovered about myself is I'm kind of a geek. And I love experimenting with new technology and new tools.
Yep.
And one day somebody walked in my office and said, "You should have a podcast."
I love it.
And at the time I looked at him and I don't know how edgy I can go on the conversation, but the edited version is
edgy as you like.
Okay, what the hell is a podcast? Okay. And this was like 2009. And he says, "Well, here's what it is. Here's how it works. And you should do this. You like talking to people." So we gave it a shot. And I just released episode 1000 about earlier this year, maybe March or April. So I've been doing it for a while.
Incredible. Congratulations. That's a huge feat.
Thank you. And it's fun. And I'm still talking.
Yeah. You haven't lost your voice, which is good.
No. You know, if anything, I think the longer I do it, the more comfortable I get just being me.
Yeah.
And I saw that same thing with my writing. When I first left corporate, I thought I had to have this very stodgy voice. And I got to tell you, I've gone back and I've reread that stuff. I think that's the biggest thing, is that the longer you do it, and if you're good and if you're really enjoying it, you get to be more of yourself.
Yeah.
And once that starts coming through, it's much easier to build an audience. It's fun.
It's fun and you get more confident and you don't care and you're more natural and you're more authentic and
Hmm.
you get better because you're doing it every day and you're practicing, you're doing the reps.
Absolutely. The other thing is that editing is so much easier. First off, I am better than I was 15 years ago. There are fewer little hiccups and things like that. But I've also embraced some of the imperfections that I would never have embraced
So true.
10 and 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And I want it to be easy to listen to. So if I'm really stumbling, I'm going to go in and clean it up.
Yeah.
But otherwise, this is me, folks.
Love it. Love it. And do you do all your own editing or do you ever outsource it?
I did, well, when I ran the agency. So I would record the shows and then I would turn it over to my team and they would edit and they would produce it and do all the graphics and everything else. And when I sold the agency, I took all that back and I have discovered that I really enjoy it
Yeah,
because I really like listening to the conversations. Because when you're having them, you don't really listen.
I agree. That's so true.
And I may get to a place where I want to outsource that again. But for right now, I'm having a lot of fun. I'm editing. The other advantage is my shows are 10 minutes. It's not a real burden
Yeah,
to
yeah.
edit a 10-minute
That's
conversation.
true. That's true. But you're really right when you say a lot of the time, of course, we're present as a host and we're listening, but there's lots of things that we miss. And when I go and rewatch an episode the next morning, I go,
Hmm.
wow, that was so interesting. I can't remember that she actually said that. Or I love the
Hmm.
way that linked up with that. Or the energy just flows when I didn't realize how well it flowed because you can't
Absolutely.
do all those things at once.
No, no. And I love it because then I listen to the episode and then it's much easier for me to pull out those little bits that I want to promote. Now, I have to admit, AI has definitely become my
Yeah,
friend.
yeah, for sure.
It's not going to replace this conversation. This is still where the real meat is.
Yeah.
But to give AI the transcript and say, write a summary, or to give it the video file and say, pull out one 30-second soundbite
Yep.
and to see what it comes back with. I'm really loving that.
Yeah, I'm loving it. So what do you use? Things like ChatGPT, Opus Pro, all those kind of tools?
Yeah, you're speaking my language. Those are all my favorite tools. The only thing I'm struggling with now, and this is every time I've looked at how podcasting has evolved, you do something new and it's cool and it's cutting edge, and then everybody starts doing
That's right.
it. Everybody is using Opus Pro or a tool like Opus Pro.
Yeah,
And all of a sudden, everybody's videos are looking the
it's the
same.
same. That's
Where 6 months ago, that was cutting edge. And
that's right.
so now I'm like, okay, what do I need to do? How do I need to change the design to up it just a little bit?
Yeah.
What am I going to have to add to it to make it stand out in a sea of Opus clips?
Opus clips, yeah. Or just change it a bit so it's
Hmm.
more like you authentically and it's a little different to everything else. You don't always have to
Yeah.
add something. You just have to make it your own style in your own personality.
Yeah. And it's just a matter of watching it, looking at what other people are doing and going, okay, everybody is doing that. That's not bad.
Yep.
How do I take it? How do I take it up a notch? What do I do to tighten it up, to shorten it, to lengthen it? You said this was episode like 230.
Yes, this is
So you're
230 something. Yeah.
yeah. So you're not a rookie. You've done this for a while and you know that the next episode and the next episode have to be better, tighter, more interesting.
Yeah.
And the only way you get there is kind of continuing to tweak it a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah. And that's the fun. So so what actually keeps you in podcasting still after 15 years?
So part of it is conversations like this. I have met some amazing people over the years, and some of them come and go. And then there's some people that have been on my show on and off over the years, and we've stayed in touch. And I feel like I know them and I feel like they're friends. And I keep threatening to do this, and I haven't done it yet, is to do a map of the world and figure out where everybody is. But I was in Boston about 3 years ago, and I reached out to someone. I said, hey, I'm going to be in Boston. I know you live there. And we had brunch. And I had never met her before, but I felt like we knew each other, you know?
Yeah.
And I think number one, the people connection is huge. Number two, I interview some really smart people. And I am a teacher, but I'm also a student at heart. And I love to listen to other people talk about their approaches to things and figure out what are they doing differently? What? Oh my God, I never thought of that. I never would have thought of using that tool in that way. And I think that's part of the jazz. And you're nodding. Why do you keep podcasting?
Yeah,
Because you got other things to do.
yeah, I agree. The same thing. I listen and learn, and it's fun, and I engage and exchange ideas. And as well as that, it gives me content. It gives me marketing content.
Mhm.
There's a lot of great knock-on effects of podcasting. And when I teach classes and courses, that's exactly what we talk about.
Absolutely. I love that I can take an old blog post
Yeah.
and turn it into a video, turn it into a podcast, match it up with 2 or 3 other episodes, turn it into a newsletter,
Yep.
and then kind of recycle it all the way again.
You're singing my song. That is in a nutshell. If people would think about leveraging their podcast episodes to the max like that, oh my God, the results that you can achieve and the awareness that you can bring and the fun that you can have are enormous.
We did this God, this has to be maybe 2010, 2011. We did this with blog posts before we really had a lot of podcast episodes in the can. We would blog every day. And then I said, you know what? Fridays, we're not going to blog. Friday, we're going to write a blog post that's nothing but links to the other blogs we've written this week.
Clever. Love it.
And we did that for years. And it introduced people because nobody, no matter how much they love you, no matter how much they love your podcast, no matter how loyal they are to your newsletter, no matter how much they read your blog, they're not there every single day.
Definitely. And these days, even more so, our attention span is shorter and shorter and shorter.
Yeah. So repurposing content, re-releasing. This is something that I do regularly. I've had a lot of conversations, and there is a lot of great content in my archive.
Yeah.
That 200 or 300 people heard 6 years ago. And it kills me that it's just there gathering dust.
Yeah, yeah.
So I re-release it. I do a little lead in that says, the national podcasts do this all the time. We're going on vacation this month, so we pulled a couple of our favorite episodes.
Perfect. Love it.
Or I do a newsletter and I'm like, okay, I just had this conversation with this person about women in the tech industry. And you know what? I had a great conversation 3 years ago on this same topic with this other woman. And so here are these two competing conversations. You listen and tell me who's got it right.
Love that idea. I'm going to steal that. That's fantastic.
Oh, every good marketing idea is worth stealing.
I'm going to steal that one.
I would be honored. So when you release my podcast, you need to go back and find somebody else who you talked to several years ago, who also had a great idea.
I love it. Very cool. Very, 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 very true. But I want to put your marketing and business hat on for a bit. Because when you worked in the corporate world, were you working in marketing?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I was a brand manager. I was a channel manager. I ran a creative services team. Oh, yes. Lots and lots of marketing.
You've done it all. Okay. Love it. And from a marketing point of view, you've obviously seen marketing change a lot. What do you find has changed to the most, and where do you feel things might be going in the future, or what should we keep an eye on?
So I'm actually going to answer your question in a most unexpected way.
Yeah, sure.
Because while the technology has changed, Facebook, I started a marketing company in 2002, which meant I started a business before LinkedIn, before Facebook were even a thing.
Yep. Email was just becoming big around that.
Right. And 19 years later, when I sold it, it was completely a digital agency. So I was earning my living doing things that didn't exist when I started the company. Okay. Even though all of that has happened, the thing about good marketing,
Yep.
good marketing hasn't changed in 50 years.
Wow.
Or longer. Good marketing is about 3 simple questions. Who is your customer? Who is your competitor? So who's got their eye and solving a problem and competing for the dollars that you want?
Interesting.
And for this campaign, what is it that you really want? Yeah, I know you want more sales, but do you want more sales of this product, of all of your products? Do you want to raise the average sale? Do you want repeat customers? You can't do it all. So those 3 questions I had to answer 25, 30, 35 years ago or more, and you still have to answer them. Now, the tools are different. The thing that I think has changed and has put pressure on us, I think, is the attention span. You know, you watch a movie filmed in the 1950s and you have these wonderful close-ups with these beautiful cameras that come sweeping in on the star and they get closer and closer, right?
Yeah.
We ain't got time for that.
We got no time for that. When I find a movie and doing that, I say, this is too slow. Next.
Something, I forget what it was. It was like the average length of a shot on a camera might be 20, 30 seconds, could even linger for a minute. Now, in a minute, you might have 20, 30, 40 shots rapid fire at you.
And the dialogue has changed as well. Like you look at an Aaron Sorkin, it's like rapid fire. You got to keep up. You got to rewatch it again because it's like,
oh, yes,
12 an hour.
Yes. So the dialogue is faster. I don't know if it's any smarter. Like every now and then I'll go back and watch an old Audrey Hepburn and what's his name, Tracy, and the way they would banter back and forth, very much in the style of Sorkin today.
Very cool. But
in general, our attention span is shorter. We scroll. And so it definitely is about stopping, getting people's attention. But a lot of the psychological tricks, they're the same.
Yeah.
It breaks my heart that some of the greatest headlines, when you study old ads, some of the greatest headlines can't exist today. They're too long. It takes them too long to get to the point.
Yeah. Or they might not be politically correct. Or
yeah, okay, there is. But a lot of the great headlines and subject lines still work. I'll tell you, I teach this class on how to write great headlines.
Great.
And one of my favorites was a newspaper in New York City. There was a gruesome story. There's a murder in a bar, and they send this reporter out to get the photograph and the story. And his office is in New York City, and he has to get all the way out to Long Island, which is a subway and a bus and a train. It's a haul. And the whole time he's going out there, it's got to be a strip club. It's got to be a strip club because he's already got the headline.
Yeah.
Headless body found in topless bar.
Oh, great.
It broke. It literally, if there was an internet, it would have broken the internet.
Yep.
But the thing about that headline is it told you the whole story in a few words.
In 4 words.
It made you go, what? Fantastic. Yeah, it's definitely considered one of the best headlines of any newspaper article. I want to say it was the Daily News, which, oh God, how do I explain that newspaper to somebody who's not from New York? This is not necessarily high quality journalism.
Okay.
It's not the New York Times. It's not the Washington Post. It's not a prestige paper.
Like an everyday fun and a bit of news kind of publication.
Yeah, but it absolutely captured. And so that's the challenge for marketers is you got to be clever. You got to be clever and quick. If anything has changed, you got to be snappier.
Yeah.
If you can say it in 10 words, go back and rewrite it and take out 5.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. Mm-hmm. And what's your take on email marketing versus social media?
Oh God, the age-old debate. I still believe that a good, high quality email list will outperform social media day in and day out.
Yeah, I kind of
And the
agree.
reason is when I go to Facebook, when I go to Instagram, and I put my message there, I am competing with pictures of somebody's grandchild, the cute puppy, the
Yeah.
beautiful vacation photos, right?
Right. Yeah.
I get an email from someone and I may only glance at it for a moment or two, but in that moment, I am giving it my undivided attention because there's nothing else on the screen.
That's right.
And I think it is harder than ever to build lists.
Mhm.
I think you have to be more creative. 15 years ago, I was talking about web candy, things you hung on your website that people would be like, oh, I want that and I want that. And oh, yeah, here's my email address. You have to offer more.
Yeah.
You have to give more value to get those names and build that list, but you still can. You absolutely can. I have people on my email list who have been with me. You're going to laugh. And there's not a lot of them, but they've been with me since 2002.
Wow.
They still read my emails. They still open it.
Right.
Yeah. And again, lost a lot of people along the way. That's part of it. But if you deliver good content, relevant for the audience, if you don't overwhelm them,
Yep.
and you honor whatever promise you have made when they signed up, they will stay with you.
Do you release all your podcast episodes in your newsletter?
The podcasts run ahead of the newsletter.
Gotcha.
Sometimes I do 3 episodes a week. There's just not enough time.
Of course.
One of the episodes each week is just me talking. I very rarely put that in the newsletter.
Yeah.
I might grab a little bit of the text. What I try to do and what's been working really well for me this year is like today's newsletter was a podcast that I released 3 weeks ago.
Right.
It was on a particular topic. And then I found 2 other shows or one other show that was on a similar related topic and put that in. So I introduced Lindsay's conversation. And sometimes I have 2 conversations back to back that are really related. Then I don't go into my archive. So I like to work a little bit ahead. And then sometimes, like I'm doing a summit, I don't want to send out 2 emails in one week. It's too much.
Yeah.
So I will turn that newsletter over to the summit promotion, and then I'll play catch up on the newsletter after that.
Gotcha. Yeah. So you have a bit of creative license about what you do, but you're trying to always honor the intent.
Yes.
That's the key.
Yes. And just like I tell the guests on my podcast, yes, it's a 10-minute show, but I don't have to be hardcore because it's my show.
Yeah.
It's my
That's the
newsletter.
beauty of it. That's the beauty of it. Yeah. And that's the
Yeah.
beauty of podcasting. There's nobody to tell you what you can and can't do.
Mm-mm. No, I do try. I grew up in New York City and I have a very colorful vocabulary. My audience usually does not get my full vocabulary because over the years have come to understand that not everybody uses certain words
Yeah.
in all parts of speech the way I do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Love it. Beautiful. So you're on your best behavior today, but you can say whatever you want. You can talk any way you want here. It's all good.
It's like when I teach, my students don't need all the adjectives.
Yeah. I love it. Now, Lorraine, you're obviously a very successful business person. You've sold your agency, you've built it and sold it. I'd love to get your advice or give your tips and advice to the audience on how to build a business like that can also run without you. So you're not a slave to it, and then ultimately sell it.
One of my favorite topics. I think that anybody who is starting a business, you need to start the business with the end in mind. I know you're building this business. You don't know if you're going to sell it to your employees. You have to think about this idea that I'm building something that is going to run without me.
Yeah.
The advantage to having that mindset is number one, when you do get ready to sell, you have something to sell. But also, if you are building a business that can run without you, while you're running the business, you can take a vacation.
That's the holy grail. That's the best.
When the first 8, maybe the first 8 years I ran the business, I didn't really take a vacation. And my husband said, this is it. We're done. We are taking a vacation. You're going to be out of the office from this day to this. And he said, we're going.
Yep.
I'm
That's
packing
tough.
your suitcase.
Totally.
We're going. And I called in and I was on the phone and whatever. But I took a vacation. But the next year, we went to Japan because my son was stationed in the Navy in Japan. And it was impossible to call in because of the time difference.
Mm-hmm.
And so I left really clear instructions. We talked about it. We had systems.
Nice.
And you know what? They closed the biggest sale in the company's history the week I was in Japan.
There you go. Love that.
So then I had to go there more often. So the trick is, and really the trick is, you got to build systems. You have to have standard operating procedures. When I left corporate, I had been running a marketing department inside a larger company, and I had 48 people. So there were a lot of balls, and we had some really amazing systems that allowed us to track where projects were. So I start my little agency, and it's just me. I have this great system from my corporate days, and it was hugely overkill for just me, but I did it anyway.
Nice.
And the advantage was that 15 years later, if you picked up the phone and you called the office and said, hey, Lorraine, 15 years ago, you designed, oh, yeah, I did. Do you want those files?
Oh,
Absolutely. Give me 5 minutes. But more important, if I was out of the office, which was my intention, and you got Peter, who had been with me for 6 months, and you're like, okay, Peter, we don't know each other, but Lorraine did this project for me. Oh, she did. Okay, hold on a minute. So your company name was, and it looks like it was about 2005. Yeah, great, no problem. Yes, I have your files. Having those kind of processes meant that if I wasn't there, the business still ran.
Yeah.
We developed standard procedures so that every time we kicked off a web project, there were phases. And in phase 1, these 10 things had to get done. And in phase 2, these things got done. And we used a software product that when we launched phase 1, my bookkeeper got a note that said, we just started working with this client. Make sure we have their contact info, send them the first invoice.
Nice.
The writing team got a note that said, we just started working with this client. Double check that we have contact info for who you're going to be interviewing. And at each step, there were these emails that went off, and then people could check off their tasks. The guy that built that system, he left. 7 years he was with me. I loved him, but it was time for him to move on. We had somebody else step into the role, and in less than 30 days, she was up and running, and we didn't miss a beat on any of our web projects.
Yeah. Beautiful.
You gotta have that.
Yeah.
Because that's what creates the value that you can sell.
That's right.
The other thing that you have to think about is reoccurring revenue, money that comes in and month out, because that has value. Existing client relationships. If you are in a churn and burn business, it's really hard to sell, because part of what had value in my agency was 19 years of web design clients who all came back to us when they needed, or not all of them, but many came back when they needed updates, when they needed changes, when it was time for another web project.
Did you ever have any models in place whereby they locked into a term of so many years, or was it more just relationships?
So we had a lot of clients that were a monthly relationship. What we ultimately got to, we would build a website. And then, hey, if you want us to continue to update it, if you want to work with us on these other things. And then what I learned is if I built in enough in that monthly fee, I never had to sell another redesign, because there was enough money that we could make changes, little changes to their website every month, which is really what you needed. And so we switched, and that was that reoccurring revenue. But we also had processes to reach back out. Hey, it's been 3 years. We taught you how to update your website. Oh, sure, you're doing a great job. maybe you'd like us to come in and dust and polish, just clean up everything, put everything back. And so we had a lot of those standard. And again, once we created the templates, I didn't have to think about it again. We created systems for proposals. I could have a sales conversation with somebody, and on the way back to the office, I could call my assistant and say, okay, I just talked to Marco about web design and a content marketing package. Go ahead and put the proposal together and give him option A and option B. And by the time I got back to the office, that document was ready to go.
Wow.
Because we had systems.
And you touched on a really good point with websites. I think these days we all need to be able to change and update our websites regularly because our website is fluid.
Mm-hmm.
Every day our marketing messages are changing. We're creating new landing pages. We're creating new offers. We can't just keep running back to the web designer. They'll drive them crazy and drive us crazy.
Absolutely. And somebody introduced me to WordPress. Oh God, I don't even know how many years ago. And I fell in love with it because I had been looking for a tool that small business owners could use that was easy, that they could learn how to update on their own and make changes. And I still think it's one of the most liberating products that's ever been introduced for small business.
Yeah, it is. Like the back end of my website is WordPress. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. It's great.
Something like 50% of all new websites are constructed on WordPress. It's not just little companies. I mean, I've seen some really big companies that are built on a WordPress platform.
Now, I know that with what you teach, you also talk a lot about websites and some of the questions that need to be answered for business people on a website to sell your product or service. So I'd love to talk a bit about that.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So
we're doing a masterclass here today.
We're doing a masterclass.
Have to go to university. This is great.
People go to the internet when they want to know things. And jump back in time 20 years ago. This is one of those technology things that's changed. Yeah. 20 years ago, you would type in furnace plus repair search, right? Little Boolean search thing going on. Yeah. Now, you whip out your phone and you're like, Siri, why does my furnace smell funny? I just turned my furnace on. What is that smell? Yeah. And the more sophisticated the voice recognition software becomes, the easier it is for people to ask natural language questions. And so you need to think about what are the questions your customers have. You need to have a really good list of all of those questions. And if you're not sure, ask a couple of the questions and then go to Google. Type in the question, and up comes a thing that says, and people also ask.
Yep.
You have a whole lot more. And you're like, ooh, that's a good question. And that's a good question. And you click on it. And people also ask. Go to ChatGPT and ask it, what are the top 50 questions people have when they are looking for an attorney, a dentist, a new furnace? And up will come all of these questions. At the same time, you need to talk to your sales team. You need to talk to your customer service team. You need to look in your inbox. What are the questions you're getting? So now you've got this great list of questions. Now I want you to go to your website. Go ahead and type in that question in the, not the search bar, but the search function of your website.
Yep.
What comes up?
Does it answer anything?
I was horrified. We were doing this project for a flooring company, and the owner was saying the thing that just plagues us is we go in to do work on a floor and we rip up the old flooring. We have to replace the subfloor. And I always have to explain, why do you need to replace the subfloor? So I went to his website, typed in the question, and you know what happened? Nothing. No content. This was the number one question customers were asking him.
Right.
So now guess what? You got all these questions. Start answering them.
Yep.
Write blog posts, write FAQs, get that content on your website.
So true.
The right question is magic. And it has probably changed now, but I will tell you that we had a client, they sold beans in glass jars.
Yeah.
And we did an article on the difference between a navy bean and a cannellini bean.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Whatever. That blog post got traffic every single day
Wow.
for a decade.
Ooh,
A decade.
wow.
And then all of a sudden, one day it stopped getting traffic. And we were like,
And where did you put this blog post? It was on your website? Did you put it
was on their
anywhere else?
website.
Just on the website.
We shared it on social media, but this was just part of the mix. We went and we searched on Google, and what we found is one of their competitors had written a blog post just like theirs.
So
But
yours
it was
kicked off.
newer information. We went back to that original blog post. We added 100 words. We added links to recipes for navy beans and cannellini beans and kidney beans. We put up 3 new pictures, and you want to know what? We got the #1 spot pick.
I'm sure you did.
And I have examples like that for every company that we worked with. There's that one magic question. And so if you understand the reason people go to the internet is because they have a question, then it's easy to know that what you need to put on your website are the answers to those questions. And again, I can do a whole masterclass on different types of questions, but that in a nutshell is what it's all about.
I mean, pretty logical when you think about it. Build a website for our customers to build trust, to build credibility, and answer their questions so they might buy from us. So pretty logical. Put the answers on your website.
Put the answers on your
Amazing
website.
how many times we don't, because we do everything else that makes us feel good, but we forget about what the customer wants.
You know what? The customer doesn't really care how many years of school you had.
Yeah,
They don't really care about your degrees, blah, blah, blah.
exactly.
They got a question. Do you have the answer?
Yeah, I don't care if you are the #1 whatever in your region with so many years experience and niche specialization in this and this. They just want to answer their question of how they fix their roof.
Yeah. Yeah. If you have a leaky roof, we can be there tomorrow.
Yeah.
Boom.
As that. Love it. And I suppose the next evolution of that are going to be custom GPTs, because that's the next phase. We're going to have GPTs that are automated, that will draw all that information from your website and interact with your customer using AI.
Absolutely.
When they engage with your site or whatever. So that's the next evolution of the same thing.
Oh, I think you're absolutely right. I think chatbots have gotten smarter and smarter. In order for a chatbot to do what it does and do it well, you have to give it the content up front.
Definitely.
You have to tell it what's important. What do you want it to focus on? Because ChatGPT will give you answers. You know, Google, if you do a search, there's that little paragraph that pops up now that's all AI driven. There's an answer there. May not be the answer that your customers really want. And this is where you've got to overlay your expertise on top of the technology. And that's something that, again, I'm a geek. I've been doing this for a very long time. Hasn't really changed. It's still about human beings using technology well.
Yeah. It's the fundamentals of engaging with your customer. Marketing hasn't changed. It's just the tools that we use to do that have changed, but our general basic innate needs are exactly the same as they were.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. I love it. There you go. Little masterclass in marketing. But I want to talk about your books. What have you, I don't know much about your books, so I'd love to hear about how many books you've written. What are they about?
So they are all marketing text related. I do have an Amazon page. You can link to it. The first one I did was the Science of Marketing, and it's a workbook for business owners to put together a marketing plan. And then I wrote how to write a business map, which is how to write a business plan. There's a very short one on healthy networking tips that started as a presentation, actually, on introducing myself as a networking junkie and explaining that I wasn't looking for a 12-step program to cure me of my habit because it was good for my business. And it just evolved into this short book. And then the last one, which is really my favorite, it's called More Than a Few Written Words. And it is a compilation of essays by people who were guests on the show.
Ah, how cool. Cool.
And when you're talking about repurposing content, this was that next iteration. I had these great guests. They wrote articles. I put them together. And you can find all links to all of those. If you go to morethanafewwords.com, you'll find everything, and it'll take you to the Amazon page, and feel free, buy 1, 12, all of them. I don't know.
Awesome. Awesome. That's my dream at some point with a friend of mine he's going to help me ghostwrite a book about my podcast episodes and my guests. But just to take one little snippet or key message from each show, put some fun graphics or caricatures around it, and then release it as a fun book. So one of these days.
I think that'll be wonderful. And honestly, doing that collection not only connected me at another level with these wonderful people, I introduced them to each other. And they have been on each other's podcasts and they've done collaborations. And I feel like a little matchmaker.
How cool is that? Well done. Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
And so do you still do any work professionally apart from teaching? Do you consult or do you take customers, or it's more just teaching now?
I actually have a few. I like to manage the number because I enjoy my traveling and photography the whole lot too. These days, I am doing strategy work, and that's really what I enjoy. I like working with companies that are not necessarily startups. They have spent some money on marketing and they are not happy with the results. And they want someone to come in and just audit what they're doing and help them build a roadmap. And one of the challenges, and I saw this when I was running the agency, there's an old expression, when you have a hammer, the whole world is a nail. Okay. Because when you have a tool, you see your tool as the solution to everyone's problems. So it's really hard to do an unbiased assessment of somebody's overall marketing when you know your goal is to sell a website.
Yeah.
We don't have that goal anymore. My goal is to just go in and look at somebody's marketing and give them an unbiased assessment, help them figure out this is what you need to do. I can help them build a roadmap for a web design that they can take back to their internal team. They can take it to their web company. I can recommend people I know that do that work, but I got no skin in the game. My only objective is the strategy. And I have one client that I have so much fun with. They're a marketing company.
Cool. Wow.
And I get paid to sit with their team and talk about their clients and help them build strategies for their clients. And then they have to go off and do all the work.
That sounds like a lot of fun to me. It's actually very liberating as well. As you say, when you don't have a particular agenda or product or service, is that you can now draw from the whole world, from your own experiences, build some of the beautiful blends between the old and the new, and you can come up with some creative results without having to always be driven by a particular agenda.
Yeah. Yeah. And you end up with, I think, programs that are really in the best interest of the customer. So yeah, I do a limited amount of that and it's lots of fun.
Love that. And so if people want to find out about you and engage with you, how do they do that?
My website, morethanafewwords.com. And I'm also very active on LinkedIn. So reach out, connect. Tell me that you heard me on the Suspended Animation podcast and we'll have a conversation.
Amazing. Well, Lorraine, it's been an absolute pleasure. I've loved talking to you. I think we'll have to do it again and we'll talk about some other great stuff because you've got so much to give. But for everybody out there, please check out Lorraine's podcast, check out her books, check out her website with all her services. And I'm sure that you'll be very, very impressed. And I always like to leave my guest with the last few words. So what would you like to leave us with today?
First off, I want to encourage everybody to definitely watch the feed because the conversation that you and I had on my podcast is coming up, I think, the end of September.
Excellent.
But the thing I want to leave you with, and this is, I just taught a class today, first day of class for my college students. And what I tell them on day number 1, and I say it every time, is marketing is about your customer. And you have to wake up every morning and say that to yourself. My marketing is about my customer. And if you really believe that, you will be brilliant.
Yeah, so true. Beautiful advice. And I think that's so true more and more even to this day because we're all using all these different tools and we can get carried away. But we have to just think, what's in it for them, not what's in it for us. And that basically guides your whole strategy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, love it. Lorraine, thank you so much for coming on the show. I loved it. I had a lot of fun. Everybody out there, I'm sure you enjoyed that as much as I did. Check out Lorraine's stuff. And I look forward to everybody enjoying the week. And we'll come back for the next episode of Playing with Perspective, the Suspended Animation Podcast. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thanks again for joining me for another episode of Playing with Perspective, the Suspended Animation Podcast. If you would like to join me as a guest on the show, I would be delighted to collaborate. Just reach out via www.suspendedanimation.com.au. Also, remember to click on the link in the show notes for loads of great podcasting resources, webinars, courses, and opportunities to help you on your podcast journey. Many of them free. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.